At Indigit, professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
It is a new day for 911 professionals. They have gone from the most important person you will never see to the most vital piece of public safety. Truth be told, they always have been. The curtain has been pulled back, and they are sharing their stories. Welcome to Imagine Listening. Your Worst Day is Our Everyday by Ricardo Martinez II, and narrated by myself, Ricardo Martinez II, and distributed by Beacon Audio Books. Copyright 2023. That's right, everyone. Finally, I can let everyone know the rumors are true. Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Everyday is now available as an audiobook on Audible, and it's a long time coming. Very excited. Not a lot of authors get the opportunity to voice their own book, but I had the honor and privilege to do so. So thank you to Beacon Audio Books, as well as my publisher, Titled Town Publishing, for everything, but especially all of you for making the I Am 911 movement, as well as Imagine Listening, what it is today. I appreciate you all more than you know. So go ahead, head out, stream it, download it, however you consume your audiobooks. Imagine Listening is now available. If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers on the podcast, whether it is on Patreon, Facebook, or Circle. Thank you all so very much. Adding a lot more things on there. The Dispatchers Roundtable, every single round, the audio is going to be going to patrons of the podcast. There are ways that you can listen to all of that bonus content, all of the audio, the bonus episodes, also open mic live sessions, all of those, as well as the ad-free episodes, which is audio only. You can listen to those on the Spotify app. So if you're a patron of the podcast, make sure to head over there. I'll have instructions and everything how to do it, but it's all available for you in one app right there on Spotify. I'm going to try to do it with Apple Podcasts as well, because you can add that piece on there. So either way, if you're a patron, you'll be able to get all of that audio. On Facebook and Circle, those are a little different. They're not the same as Patreon, but with Patreon, you get a lot, and you also help me continue doing what I do. So I appreciate all of you very much. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up, a lot of conferences that I'll be at, classes that I'll be out teaching, whether it's in the state of Indiana, Michigan, or any state, really. You'd like to have a chance to take my communications course. It's an 8-hour course. It also has Imagine Listening in there as well. Just shoot me an email and we'll get things going. So With all of that there, thank you for returning here to Within the Trenches podcast. I think this is going to be like episode, when it comes out, it'll be like episode 533 or 34, something like that. This is crazy. I never expected for the podcast to be where it is, but I thank all of you very, very much. Those of you watching, listening, supporting, sharing, all of it. Thank you so, so very much. It has been an amazing experience. So I am stoked for my guest today. Her name is Ashley, and she is your friendly neighborhood dispatcher out of the city of Elkhart in Indiana. Hello.
Hey,
I I could
hello.
I could see you laughing in the little green room spot right before I pulled you in when I said what I said.
I
uh,
love it. It just
yeah,
sounds so great.
that was fun. That was really good. And your hello there right in the beginning, you had that Mrs. Doubtfire hello going there. So
Hello.
yeah. Hello. That is great. I am super excited to have you on. Now you're starting your 10th year in public
I
safety, right? Is it is
am.
it is it dispatch or is it public safety altogether? Where do you come from?
It's just that's my whole public safety career. I
Nice.
was I never expected to be where I was. I actually my most of my career life was spent at Family Video. I was there for 11 years.
What?
Rest in peace. I loved that job. It was such a fun job. And then I knew with streaming and stuff, I knew that it wasn't going to be much longer before the video store world ended. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take off and find another career because I know this isn't going to be my forever. So I went to State Farm and I because I learned a lot, but it wasn't my career. I was just like, I don't like it. So someone's like, hey, you should look for city jobs. They usually pay well and people stay there for a long time. I was like, okay. So I see 911 dispatcher and I go, this sounds interesting. Like, I've always wanted to make a difference in someone's life, whether it's just one person or you know a handful. So I applied, and within a few months I got called in for the critical test, and started from there. And the interview process took about a couple of months, and then I started my career January 28th, 2015.
Damn, you even have the
It's kind of
date
crazy.
down.
Yes.
Well
Oh,
done.
yes. Every year I celebrate. Every year I celebrate that I'm survived because dispatchers don't last this long. It's not very often that you hear a lot of people that are here for like 5 years, but our center has we've had people that are going on their 20th year, 18th year, like 10th year, 11th year. I mean, we have a few dispatchers that have been with us for a while, so it's pretty cool because it's a
Wow.
rare breed these days.
Well, I have to ask because I mean, with a lot of folks that are there at your agency that have been there a long time, I mean, that's just a true testament to the things that are going on there. What do you think that is? What do you think the reason is that people have stayed there so long? Is it, good training, or is it, folks feel like they're being recognized? What do you think that is?
I think the pay has like a huge chunk of that because our center, I think, like if you get a list, we're paid pretty well, especially if you compare to other centers, and like
Mhm.
especially in major cities like Chicago, Nashville and stuff. Like, I've looked just out of curiosity and I'm like, wow, we get paid really well. And plus I feel like the relationships we build within each other, like I feel like we kind of have a hard time letting go. And shift life, like once you get into it, once you figure out life around it, it's hard to think of. And also I think the job kind of, it changes us too, to where we behave in the center, like going out into like more customer service. Like 911 is customer service, but face-to-face customer service, it's harder to people, I think, as you become a dispatcher. And I think
I
a
agree.
lot of people, because I know people who have also left dispatch to go into, other types of jobs, and then they come back because they're like, nope, can't do it. I just this is it. So I feel like it's a like a very like a bunch of different reasons that like people have a hard time just leaving, because and especially like for me, I ended up falling in love with this job. I never expected to like really love what I do, even on bad days, even on days where we're just like, oh, this day really just is horrible and I hate
Right.
everything. It's just like in the end, I still love it. And yeah, I think that, yeah, various reasons and just, yeah, that's there we go.
Do you do do you feel like, the jobs that you had before, especially
Mhm.
family video, which I will say really quick, before I got into dispatch, I managed a Blockbuster. So
Oh my God.
we have that in common there, working at a
Yes.
video store. But do you feel like working in, or at Family Video, or even State Farm, either one of those jobs, because you're dealing with people as well, do you feel like there were any moments in either one of those positions that kind of helped you when you got into dispatch? Because I mean, you're not face to face, right? You're with them on the
Right.
phone, but still, there are things
Yeah.
that happen customer service wise that you pull back from some of those experiences to,
Yeah.
add it to what you're doing now.
Yeah. I feel like I've learned a lot how important customer service is. And even like when I started dispatch, like I kind of like would watch other people around me, and they were very stern compared to like what I'm used to. Like I'm like this bright, bubbly person usually. And, I feel like I've carried that with me from family video to State Farm to here. Like some days I have to remember that like even if I'm having a bad day, it's not the person's fault on the other end of the line. Like, or if we're getting slammed or we're stressed to the max, it's not that other person on the other end of the line's fault. So I have like taken a step back to like knowing that customer service at Family Video at State Farm is just as important as 911. Like we still got to bring that energy. We still got to bring that friendliness, because the one thing I've always learned, like I think a huge eye opener was like the Denise Amber Lee training, was
Yeah.
how important that customer service is. And people who want to call 911 or non-emergency or for help or anything, like no matter the reason, we want to make them feel safe or encouraged to do so. Even we have the frequent flyers, or we have the people that call for the same thing every day. We don't ever want to make them like feel like they're not being like, you know what I mean? Like they're not being
Right.
heard, or we don't want to discourage them from, because one day they may have an actual emergency and they had a bad experience with us and they don't want to call and something happens.
Exactly.
Like we don't want to have that on our conscience, or we don't want to have that on our center. Like we want to be able to be like, hey, I know I can call them anytime I need help, even if it's something that we can't necessarily assist them with. At least they feel safe to do so.
Right, exactly, and that's exactly one of the things I was gonna mention as well, just listening to you talk, because I agree. It could be, and I've told people this many times, especially on this program, that it could be the first time that this person is calling for help, and that first impression, man, like, those things matter, that's why there's
Yeah.
so many customer service classes for not just for
Yes.
dispatch, but anything that has to do with folks who are, on the phone or even face to face, right? Because that first impression, they might not ever call again. They might think,
Mhm.
I've been going through this bullshit at home, and I'm calling for help, and now I'm kind of, hearing, that same tone maybe of whoever they were having an issue with. Now they're hearing it from someone that they're looking for help from, and they might not ever call back again, and that's the part that sucks, but that's also why it's up to us that even if we're having, a shit day or all these hard calls that we've taken, it's not that caller's fault, just like you said. And we need to work on some of those things so that people don't hear that. But then again, on the other side of that too, you end up getting, just for example, and this is not any specific story. This is just um, over the top, um, or high level speaking, more so saying it that way. That you end up getting whatever news story, and there's an audio clip, and then people start commenting saying, "Well, the person taking the call sounds like a drone. They sound like they don't care." No, it's not that we don't care. It's that we have to keep our emotions just not so much flatline, but, we have to
Mhm.
stay calm, and that's us being calm to get all the information that we need to get the person help, because in the back of our minds, we're freaking out just like that caller,
Oh my
but it's
gosh.
it's y
Yeah.
yeah, but it's our job to
Mhm.
stay calm and not show that, but other people, they don't realize. That's why conversations like this are important.
Yeah, like, it's funny you mentioned that because I was watching a TikTok and someone had played, um, oh gosh, it was Richard Sherman, I think, the football player. I don't
Mhm.
know how old this was. I don't know how recent this was, but it was like a domestic and he was drunk and threatening to leave and his wife had called and was just like just get him like not she was freaking out obviously because she was in a stressful situation and the dispatcher was trying to get the information and it was a lot like she was very stern like I guess like and people were commenting on how rude the dispatcher was. The dispatcher needs to be fired and I'm just like, yo, like what in the world, just because like she's getting yelled at for asking all these questions for officer safety and females like why are you asking all these questions, get him here, I need help now, and she kept saying that. And I'm like, the only thing I would have changed is probably our tone could have been a little bit more friendly because it didn't seem empathetic. And
Right,
sometimes we don't
yeah.
realize until after the call, like we're just like, oh, I probably should have been a little more empathetic. But I'm like, man, people just are so quick to like come
Right.
after our heads. Like if we're not like bright and bubbly and like, well, you don't understand though. Like, I can't tell you how many people would say, just get him here. Why are you asking all these damn questions? It's like us asking these questions isn't delaying the response. We just need officer safety,
Exactly.
scene safety. And sometimes we do have to have our mother or father voice and we have to come down with a hammer a little bit to kind of get our caller to get on our level. But I mean, it's wild like how people from the outside world that don't understand the stresses that we deal with, like they think, oh my gosh, just because we're not friendly all the time, like we do our best, but please don't come after our heads.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But
There's
yeah, that's yeah, that just stuck out because sometimes I sit there and I'm like, should I say anything? Should I say something? I'm like, you guys don't understand what we do. I understand that she didn't sound super friendly, but just you got to take it from you. How about you ask like, hey, why did you sound like that? Because yeah,
right.
sometimes we do sound like drones or it sounds like we're annoyed, but we're not. We're trying to keep it together and we're just like, don't lose it. I've had moments where I'm like, don't lose it.
I I've had, I've had those moments as well when you see a TikTok or an Instagram reel or something on Twitter or X, and you wanna comment. Like, there was something recently that I saw, and I wanted to comment, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, "Nope, don't do it," because then it's just gonna cause a bunch of crap that you don't want to deal with right now. So just let other people answer, and luckily, there were some other folks that did answer. It didn't look like they were from public safety, but they understood, which was
Yeah,
which was pretty cool. So then I thought, "Okay, I don't have to get involved in this." So
exactly. I was like,
gonna
thank
go ahead
you.
and leave it. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
just
so, going back a little bit here, we talk about the beginning of your career and everything that you went through. What was training like for you? And also the area that you laugh about.
yeah.
So I'm not even going to ask the second question. We're going to stick with that one right there. What was training like for you?
Oh, I was very blessed to have an amazing trainer for most of my training. His name was Dan Schaefer,
Mhm.
and he's no longer with us, but he he like started me off. I started on midnights, and first off, I memorized. I before I even started, I had all of my 10 codes memorized. everything was memorized because I thought that was mandatory. They never told me it was. They just handed me the sheet and was like, hey, in case you want to learn these. And I said, and I took it as, you're going to get fired if you don't have these memorized. So, but they never said that. I just kind of took it as that.
Yeah.
So I had them memorized, and, training, I was on midnights. It was January. So things were not as active as they normally are. So I got a lot of learning in, but I was such a nervous wreck. So I started with call taking. And of course, like, I was one of those, like, I guess, ignorant people that were like, what, have you ever seen the call? Is your life like that every day? No, it's not like that every day. But I was afraid it was going to be. I was afraid every single call that was going to come in was something intense. And so, like, I was so shook, like, taking calls. My first call, and this is used as an example today as what not to do. So Dan would let me, like, once I got all the basics and stuff down, he would start to let me go on my own. He'd listen, he'd be right there in case shit hit the fan. But he wanted me to learn on my own, which I'm very thankful for, because, it's so easy to, like, spoon feed what the person should say to the point where they just rely on everybody else. And he just let me fly. And so this person was having a panic attack. And I was like, okay, I forgot to get the address or verify the address. And I didn't do EMD because I was so scared, because the caller's like, my daughter is having a hard time breathing. She's having a panic attack. I'm like, oh, okay. And she goes, just get him here. I go, okay, click. And Dan just looks at me and he's like, what the hell are you doing? And I go,
oh no.
She just said to get him here. And so that's what I'm doing. And he goes, you need more information. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, so naturally I had to call back, and I got the information, got her the help she needed. Everything was fine. But still, like, after that, I was like, okay, I guess I kind of need to have more questions answered. And, I was so, like, scared. I was literally scared of this job. And then, I had some pep talks from, like, senior dispatchers that kind of talked me down off the ledge a little bit, because I think I put outside scenarios into our center that probably had higher, like, slim chances of happening. It could happen, but, it's not going to come in every day. Like, I think, like, that was when, like, the Dallas ambush where the officers were ambushed, that happened. So I was scared it was going to happen while I was on duty, and I didn't know what to do. And that was my biggest fear, was I'm not going to know what to do in the event of emergency, and I'm going to hurt somebody or I'm going to kill somebody. And, like, that was, like, my huge fear. But then as the training went on, I was in good hands, little by little. So after I did call taking, I went to police dispatch, which I love. I hated at first because, again, scared. I was scared of the job.
Right.
I was, like, terrified that I was terrified that I was going to hurt an officer, or my biggest thing too was not understanding the caller, not understanding the officer, not realizing that, hey, you can ask them to repeat their traffic. You can ask the caller to repeat themselves. Like, if a caller is panicked, you just say, hey, caller, I need you to take a deep breath. I need to understand you so I can send help. Like, those tools like that just didn't register with me yet. And then once it did, everything clicked. Everything, like, knowing that, I think the biggest thing was one of the senior dispatchers told me, this is not your emergency. Don't treat it like it is. And I was like, oh. I was like, oh, that changed everything. And I was like, it's not my emergency. So then after that, I was calm, even in higher stress situations, like, I was able to stay calm. And with police dispatch, like, I always call it, it's like a game of chess. Like, you always have to think of the next move of, like, if this happens, you know who to send, or if that happens, you know what's going to happen. And so then after police, I went to fire dispatch, which I feel like is a vacation from police dispatch. Like, it's a lot, but it's also, but, like, it's like your reward for surviving police side, because, like, I feel like police side is probably one of the harder things to dispatch, just because of all the elements that you have to have. And I say, at least for our center, I say it makes or breaks you. Like, that's the position that, whether or not our trainee is going to make it or not. Because it's something they have to do. And if they can hack it, then their final phase is fireside. And it's like, this is a vacation compared to, like, what you've just done. This is just like, I mean, it's still a lot to memorize, but it's not the whole shift. Like you can still like have your SOPs up and be like, okay, because sometimes I'll do that if like a surrounding agency or if I see on the news this happen, I'm like, how would we respond? And I'm like, I haven't had this happen before, so what would we do? So I bring up my SOP. In Fireside, you kind of have that luxury because we're not a major city, so things like that don't happen as often. Knock on wood. I'm knocking on wood over here. So we have that. We're very blessed in that to where we can kind of review stuff and not always have to worry about like catastrophe.
Man.
So yeah, so my training, our training is I don't know, our training is still a work in progress now at the center. But for my training, I was released by May. I started the end of January. I was released by early May. I caught on to everything. Yeah. Yeah. They were also very
Well
short
done.
staffed. So yeah. So they were short staffed. So I haven't, like, even to this day, I still have never done a ride along because that was part of the training was you got to ride along with fire and you got to ride along with police. Well, they were short staffed. They're like, we just need to get you trained and ready for the floor. So I did not get a ride along. And I'm like, to this day, I'm still like, I've been here 9 years and I still haven't had a ride along.
Wait,
But
what a minute. Wait, hold on a minute. I went to say, wait a minute. And I said, what a minute. Wait a
what
minute.
a minute.
I know. What a minute. Jeez. So you're starting your 10th year and
Yep.
you have not done a ride along at all with
Nope.
any other, not EMS, fire, or police, nothing.
Nope. Nope.
Dude,
No.
you need to get out there at least for the the police side, because
Yeah,
well,
I
and
wanted
hopefully
to, but
hopefully it's there's stuff going on. Like mine, there was a lot of
yes.
crazy shit happening.
Yeah, our officers like to kick stuff up. Like that's one thing that they will not disappoint. They like to keep busy for the most part. And actually, as the weather gets, I'm a weirdo. Like I don't want to do a ride along in the winter. I'd rather wait for a nice summer day or a nice spring day. So because driving in snow and stuff makes me nervous, and to have like I know the officer knows what they're doing. It's not
Yeah.
like their first rodeo, but I would totally be a backseat driver. I'd be like, oh my god, oh my, and if when they had to like go code 3 to something, I'd be like, I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. And it's just that's a me thing. That's my issue. It's not nobody's ever, I don't know. Maybe I just have trust issues, I guess. But gosh, our center, we have like there's 18 positions for dispatchers. And we are right now, we have 2 in training, but unless they're released, I don't really count them because, anything can happen. So we're still 5 down. We're still 5 people down. And so it's hard to actually take the time off to go on a ride along because we have like comp time where we can take a comp day and everybody's like, we're taking day off. And I'm like, dang it. I want to go. But what I think like this spring, I'm actually going to make sure that like I actually do a ride along because yeah, I get jealous. I'm like, the trainees have like done 2 ride alongs. I'm like, I remember when oh wait, no, I don't because I haven't done it yet. And so I'm like, I feel cheated. I feel cheated. And I keep telling my director, I'm like, I still haven't done a ride along. He goes, well, send me an email when you want to go and I'll set it up. I'm like, okay. And then I don't. I'm like, okay, I guess I should probably. I mean, it's all me. It's like my director hasn't done anything about that. Like, no, he's like, you can send an email. I'm like, yeah, but I have to make sure we're 4 up and I don't want to come in on my day off. And, I want to make sure I'm getting paid for this. So
yeah, there's a lot of different things that end up going into that ride along as well, but the stuff that you get from it too, whether it be for a geo ride, which those who are watching and listening who don't know what that means, a geo ride is a geography ride where you're going around and just viewing and experiencing different spots in the county or city or whatever where you work in. For example, for me, I knew basically all the west side of the county, but the east side I didn't know. So I would drive around there, or I would, go with other, coworkers just to view the other side of the county, which was always good, especially when someone calls in and they say, just for example, it's by the water tower over there by Bob's Road. And you're like, what? I don't know what Bob's Road is, but there's a lot of people that you work with that might know exactly where Bob's Road is. So doing a
Yeah.
geo ride, that helps to be able to know those different spots to help people even faster than before. Now, for you, you have those moments in training, right, as you were telling the story and stuff, but when do you feel like, because you're starting your 10th year, when do you feel like you, whether it be, well, I guess this is a two-part question here, because you said that you fell in love with the job right away. So first, when do you feel like you realized that? Was it early on? Was it a certain call incident that happened, or maybe even something there within the center? But also on top of that, part two of that is, when did you feel like you really had a handle of this profession, of your career? Because a lot of people say it's about like 2.5, 3 years when you really feel dialed in. What was that like for you?
I feel like that's about accurate. Like a couple years in, I feel that gives you enough time to kind of get exposed to as much as possible. Although there are still some things that I haven't been exposed to. I think with every major incident I have, I feel like that's when my confidence would go up. So if we had a shooting, although I don't remember my first pursuit and I'm really sad about that. But like handling pursuits. And I think the moment where when I would be nervous on police side or nervous on like a certain position, when I stopped being nervous and I was like, bring on the chaos, like now I live for the chaos, I live for the crazy. That's kind of when I knew, okay, I'm pretty comfortable with this. Like if this were to happen, how would I react? Would I freak out, or would I be like, let's go? Like when we have like officers that are very well known to like kick up pursuits, I'm like, all right, let's go, let's do this. Like then I knew, okay, I'm pretty comfortable in this position and I can handle it. Same thing with difficult calls and stuff like that. How I bounced back from that kind of made me realize, okay, I am pretty comfortable with this job. And that took about 2.5, like honestly, like the 2.5, 3 years that kind of gave like, and that's what we tell our trainees is like, it takes about 2 years to be comfortable. And by be comfortable, it's not like knowing everything. It's just, you're not freaking out or not feeling like that inner panic.
Right.
um the inner panic of like, oh god, I don't know what to do. You know that you've got a team with you to support you. You know that, hey, I know where to go from here. um Falling in love with this job, it's kind of funny you asked that, because like I guess you don't realize, like I didn't realize how much I loved this job probably until very recently, until like maybe a year or two ago, because I wanted to know, where was my end game with this? Like, where did I see myself down the road with this profession? Am I going to stay here, or am I going to go elsewhere? Like down the road after I hit 10 years, I'm fully vested. A lot of people are like, all right, we're peacing out. Um, like 10 years, we're done.
Yeah.
But I realized that I wanted to do more with this, with the career. I want to be like a positive person, like not a positive person, like a positive influence as a 911 dispatcher, be an advocate for like all of us, like eventually get into a leadership position and, grow from there and be more involved with the communities. Like I just realized like, hey, that's what I want to do with my position. I'm like, wow, I really do love this job. Like I love this. I will retire in this field. Like that's where I guess I really didn't realize it until showing up. And then people ask, do you like what you do? I'm like, yeah, I love what I do. I'm like, holy crap, I love what I do. Like I really do take pride. And I love doing community stuff too. Like I'm recently like been talking with my director about being more community based, because we're not seen and it's very easy to forget us and the importance that we do in educating the public, educating like nursing homes and elementary schools as to like nursing homes mainly for EMD, which is why do we ask the questions that we do? Because I know all the dispatchers are like, these nurses hate us. Like they're like, why are
Right.
you asking these questions? And we're like, we don't like asking them, but it's our job. And sometimes they don't understand, hey, that we have to ask these questions. We're not trying to piss you off. We're not trying to like, tell you how to do your job. We're just trying to like do our job and, make sure we're protected too. And I think that they just didn't understand that. So like I don't know. I kind of want to be like more of an advocate for like a positive like influence, I guess, for the public to understand us, because I feel like we're very misunderstood. A
Mhm.
lot of people, especially and especially people who are in charge of center, like how to put this delicately, like people who make big decisions in our field. How about that? Like people who make big decisions in our field don't necessarily understand what we do. I want to change that. I want to have a better relationship with like
I
the
love
big
that.
decision makers in the center, because they don't want, like, because there's it's so easy for them to say, oh, this isn't going to affect them any, and it's like, do you know? Do you understand what we do? Then please don't make that big decision yet. Please let us educate you. Like, let's come over and see what we do. And I feel like a lot of centers all over have the same issue where people make big decisions without understanding the impact. And we just recently went through that. So I just, yeah. Woo.
I believe that. I know exactly what you mean, and, we had something happen at my old center where, they had upgraded our CAD system, and again, for those watching and listening that don't know what that is, it's computer-aided dispatch. It's our computer software where we type in all of our complaints, the narrative, and all this other stuff so that everybody can see it on their screens as well as, the officers that are going out there on their laptops. So one of those things, just like you were saying, that people don't really understand a lot of it and they implement things and it ends up messing things up is back at my old center when we were upgrading that system, our IT department didn't they didn't want to do a specific upgrade because they felt that it would slow down their network. So what ended up happening though was when we're using this new program and we finally implement it, what we started seeing was that we were typing in. So let's just say, for example, I'm on a domestic call. Those are high stress, very fast type calls because anything can happen really in any call, right? Anything can happen, but especially
Mhm.
when there is a domestic that is going on. Now, this one was just verbal, but it could have easily turned into one with weapons or something. So, I'm typing super fast, typing like everybody does when you're taking a high priority call.
Yes.
The bad part, though, was because of the CAD system and the way they had it set up, what they didn't know, and we had to pound in their heads, and even I think we even recorded it somehow, or we had to show them, but we would be typing, and it would take 10, maybe 15 seconds sometimes for all of that narrative to catch up to us.
Oh my God.
And right, and so to your point,
Yeah.
a lot of people, decision makers or whatever, we want to do as much as possible to get them to understand fully what it is that we're going through before they make some of those big decisions or implement certain things because stuff like that can happen and people can possibly either get hurt or just the information is not in there. I mean, just imagine if this was a domestic with a weapon and I'm typing all that in there and it's taking just those 10 to 15 seconds. It doesn't seem like a long time, but if an officer gets there right away and they don't see it or, I yell over and say, "This is not going in yet. Let them know there's weapons now." And they
Yeah.
give it out over the radio. Even if they give it out over the radio, I mean, that officer could be going in and then they're, stuck in that spot. Do I go in? Do I wait? Because I just now found this out. But they could have gotten it 10 to 15 seconds earlier because I was already typing it in. But because something was implemented that they didn't understand how it was impacting us and how it could impact everyone else, something bad could have happened.
Yeah, and seconds save lives. Like, it's
Right.
funny because our center went through something similar. Won't go into detail, but the biggest takeaway from for me specifically was like, I know like technology is always evolving. There's always going to be better systems, better upgrades when the time is coming to help our job, and I'm not against that. But if there's going to be major changes where our like department is mostly affected, I feel it's super important to include the center as having a say, like, hey, we are considering doing this. This is the program we want to go with. What do you think? What are the pros? What are the cons? And actually listen to us. Like, we're not gonna be like, oh, we hate change. Like, we have, like, it as a 911 dispatcher, you have to be comfortable with change. There's always going to be changes, policies,
Right.
technology, callers, like, everything's always going to change. And so it's not that we're against that, but it's like, I feel like we just we're just kind of swept under the rug, like, you're just going to take it. And I think that's so important to, like, just include dispatchers, like, let them have a voice too, because especially if it's our job, like, that's liability. I don't think people understand. It's like, we have lives in our hands, like, in a matter of seconds, and not just the callers' lives, but the responders' lives too. And that's huge. That's a huge weight on our shoulders, that if something goes wrong, our fault or not, we're always going to carry that with us. Like, and that's going to be something that haunts us. And we don't want to have something that's going to make things worse, like make things more unsafe for our public. And yeah, that's just a huge thing.
Again, I agree with everything that you're saying, and there's so much that goes into this that that people really don't understand, especially the way you were saying how some of that impacts us later on. And again, that's why conversations like this are important so that people can understand all of that. And I want to go back really quick to how you mentioned a lot of these things that you want to do, how you love your job and how it sounds like in a lot of aspects is rewarding as well. So there is, out of all the people that I've spoken to, there's always something that has driven them towards that path to want to educate, to just want to help others or whichever. Was there something that you can think of, whether it be a phone call or maybe an interaction with a coworker that kind of was like that inspiration for you to be like, "You know what? I wanna help others in this way as well." Whether it be the new folks that are coming in, helping the public understand a little more, or even those out in the field so that excuse me, so that you can kind of bridge that gap between the disciplines of public safety so that we understand each other more. What kind of was that driving force for you?
I kind of feel like the most recent thing that our center went through, it kind of pulled us together, and just having the fight to be heard, like, that we had to go through in order for us to be heard with our situation. Seeing a coworker who's also our union president take, like, the brave steps to kind of, like, with our CAD situation that we had, we had a lot of great concerns about it, and we felt like we weren't being heard. And our union president, and she's also a dispatcher, and she also loves her job in the center, and she went before the city council, like, put herself on the line and spoke up about it, and was like, there are some things that I'm afraid aren't being addressed, and put it out there. And I felt like that started bridging the gap a little bit. Like, they kind of heard and was like being receptive. And whether or not that was like a driving force of to what ended up happening, I don't know. But the fact that I really admired her for what she did, because she fought for what she believed in. She put herself on the line, which is super brave. And a lot of people, I feel like, don't, like, are afraid to do that because of the consequences. And I was just like, I kind of, like, that inspired me, because I've always been the person that just kind of sat in the background and just stayed complacent a little bit. And more recently, I feel like I wanted to start speaking out and standing up for us a little bit more. Um, and then that led me to believe, it's like, I can either just sit here and bitch about it and just not do anything about it, or at least try to do something. And I mean, I may not always be successful. I may not, and that's okay, but I need to try. I need to fight, and, at least try to be heard. And that kind of inspired me to kind of go in the direction that I'm going now. It's like, okay, what can I do to make a difference? What can and of course, me being me, I'm like, I need to be as knowledgeable as I can before kind of going for this fight. So it's like, okay, so, like, now I'm working on ENP certification and CMCP, and doing things that can help educate me more on being a better, like, example, I guess you could say, as a dispatcher. So Yeah, a lot of recent events have kind of like shed into light that I'm like, oh, maybe this is what I want to do.
And that's a good thing, and I love that you want to be that voice and help as well, be that advocate and everything. I have to say that, isn't it interesting that we continue to fight for our voice within public safety? However, it's what we use every single day to help save lives, to help send. That's our voice. That's
Yeah.
our weapon. Yet, in the grand scheme of things, we're still trying to fight to be heard. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like, how odd is that?
Yeah. I know. It is, and it's also frustrating because it's like, it just okay, my cat just decided to say hi. Sorry.
Hello, kitty cat.
That is Cinco.
That's awesome.
She just doesn't care. It's just, it just boggles my mind sometimes, just like how little some people know about what we do and the importance of our job. Cinco, okay, sorry.
No, you're all good. That's
I'm a crazy cat
this
lady.
makes for a
Lay
funny
back.
episode as well. So,
Oh my gosh. This is my therapy cat. No, I have like, yeah, she is kind of a therapy animal for me, but
hey, I'm
um
all about it.
yes. But it always boggles my mind, just like, and people, and how some people think we're so disposable, like how people can just easily plug in and do what we do, and it's like,
Nope.
no, you don't understand. Like, I like we had one person, one thing that will always stick with me, I'll never forget how angry I got. It was like during negotiations for our union contract, and we were trying to line, because we're first responders, we're recognized in Indiana as first responders, and
Well done,
we were
Indiana.
trying, yes, we were trying to align, not like copy police or fire, but kind of align a little bit on the dispatch side of benefits and stuff. And one of the city officials, who's no longer there, she kept saying, no, we need you to align more with the street department and with this. And I said, I finally had enough. And I was like, I need to ask, why are you aligning us when we are recognized as first responders? Like, we should also have the benefits. We're a 24/7 operation, And she goes, well, you don't get shot at. And I was like, say what now? I was like, okay. And she's like,
Wow.
the street department's 24 hours too. And I was like, I had to like walk away because I was about to go off. I was like, okay, so you clearly don't understand what we do and the stresses. I go, I understand. Like, yes, police do have, they physically put themselves out there. And yes, they see a lot of stuff, I completely get that. I said, but don't minimize what we do because of that. I
Right.
go, we have just as much of an impact. We go through just as much as trauma. Like, it may not be the physical aspect, but my God, like, we take multiple calls. And some days it's multiple back to back chaos calls. Like, holy cow. Like, it just boggled my mind that was like, you didn't take the time to understand, hey, this is what we do. You think that you can just put Joe Schmo from the street and be like, hey, you want to be a dispatcher? All right, come and plug in over here. Go ahead. It's like, no, no,
No, especially
like,
now, it does not work that way.
yeah, no. And
There's way too
the
much to
whole,
it.
the gap, even today, like with everything what we have to offer, the gap is still huge. And I would love to just be a part of at least minimizing that a little bit.
I love that. No, that is good. Any way to get that information out there to, the public, or just those in general in our own, profession that don't understand, I'm all about that. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question, of course, as long as you feel comfortable sharing, but is there a
Yeah.
a call that kind of sticks with you?
Yeah. There's one, and it's wild. Like, I pride on myself of kind of being okay emotionally when it comes to hard calls. Like, there have been times where after the fact, like maybe I go home and I'm just like, or I didn't realize how much it affected me until I talk about it. And then I start kind of crying. I'm like, whoa, I just didn't realize that impact. There was one, so suicidal calls, like people who complete the act, especially, those hit me hard a little bit. My dad took his life when I was 19. Also, I've
I'm sorry.
had friends, thank you. I've had friends, and I had a nephew who also took his life. And so being left behind is, and I honestly, like back in the day when I was trying to cope about my dad, I tried to take my life too. So like I kind of have like a soft spot for those type of calls, because a lot of, and being left behind, especially because people don't always understand. Like it's very easy to judge, but when you come from that place, you kind of understand a little bit. I took a call from a guy, and it was so eerie too, because we had just completed like suicidal training for our center. And it was, they used an example of how one lady, like it was an actual call, and how one lady called and she was reporting her suicide. She was just like, hi, I'm calling to report a suicide, blah, 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 my own. Okay, thank you. Click. Like she hung up, like the caller, like the dispatcher couldn't even like reason with her. So it wasn't too long after that, I get a call and he goes, yes, I'd like to report a suicide. Okay, where's the location? Got the location. Okay, what's your name? What's your phone number? I said, okay, tell me exactly what happened. And he's like, I'd like to report a suicide. And I was like, okay, well, do you know who it is? And he goes, it's me. I was like, okay. So my instinct is keep him on the phone as long as possible. So I get his information. Okay. Do you have a weapon? He wouldn't disclose that. He's like, that's not important. I was like, no, it kind of is. We need to know for the safety. So then I start talking to him. What's going on? Why are you feeling this way? And I get his location, get if he's in a truck or if he's in a vehicle or on foot, and I get officers on the way. And he keeps wanting to hang up. I'm like, no, stay on the phone with me for a little bit longer. Let's talk a little bit. And I kept him on the phone, and then he disconnected like shortly, like, but it was enough time to where there was like officers were rolling up. And when they got there, he had a gun to his head, and they had to stand off with him. And I just like kind of sat there like, oh my God, oh my God. Like I never, like, I was shook. I was like, please, please just don't let him do this. Don't let him do this. And thankfully the officers who responded were able to talk with him, got him, talked him down, got him the help he needed. And I was just like, holy crap. Like
Wow.
I like took a step back. I was like, oh, did not, oh man, even this day I was just like, holy crap. I was beside myself. I was just that's all I could say was holy crap. And then I remember freaking out, and they're like, it's okay, do you need to stay? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I need to know the outcome. I need to make sure this guy survives or this guy doesn't do anything. And
Right. That
thank
closure.
God yeah, like the closure, because we don't like dispatchers don't get that very often, like especially if they leave in the middle of it. Like we don't always get that luxury. Like our officers do a really good job. The ones I work with, they do their best. Like they know, like with incidents, they know we get curious and they come up and say, hey, here's what's going on with that, which I'm very thankful for. But a lot of the times we're left to guess and wonder. So that really stuck with me, because I'd never been so scared in my life. Like just for him too, because he just felt like there was no other option. And it made me really sad. And I wanted to at least be like, please just don't go. Please don't go. So that
Wow.
definitely has stuck with me.
So do you feel like the past experiences that you have kind of helped you a little bit in that call, or any other call that is similar with, a
Yeah.
suicidal caller or anything? Because the reason I ask, and is only because I'm a firm believer that there are certain things that happen to us in our life, and our past experiences, that sometimes there are phone calls that are kind of meant for us because we have a certain experience that others might not have. And like you were saying, you were able to understand this person a lot better because of a lot of things that you went through. I mean, do you kind of feel like some of that maybe, I don't know, prepared you in a way.
100%. 100% because, not, some people view suicides and stuff like that differently. And, I feel like when you experience something through that, like I know like my coworkers might experience something that I haven't, so they're going to have more of an understanding. But with me, like I feel like being left behind and also dealing with like the mental health struggle,
Right.
like I feel like I openly can speak about it too. Like I will gladly say, listen, I know your problems feel really big right now, but I promise you, as somebody who's lost somebody because they felt their problems were too big, they're not. They're like, I want, like, you need to stay here. You're like, your story isn't over yet. You are loved. I know it doesn't feel that way right now. Like, I feel like being able to like level with them a little bit and be able to like truly speak the truth and not just go by what your training is. Like, it's more, it's more, I don't know. I don't want to say more genuine because I feel like dispatchers do care. It's not like that, but it's just like you just understand. You just know, like, you've been there. You literally have been there and it sucks. And you want to be like, listen, it's not, it just, it's not your time yet.
Right.
Don't force your exit from this world. Like, you just, it sucks. Because I said, the pain that you feel, you're about to pass that on to other people, and they love you and they will miss you and they want to help you, even if there's a spat or a fight right now. I said it will pass. I said, but it just, I feel like definitely what I went through has definitely helped me with that a lot more, and try to have more empathy, for those types of situations, especially. And for people who get left behind too, there was, it's hard taking those calls too when they're trying to get with an officer about it and you hear them crying and you hear the pain and you're just like, God, I remember that.
Hmm.
Really, really sucks.
Did you have after that call specifically, if you remember, or even any other calls that are similar, um, are you able to go off the floor to just kind of decompress? Because not a lot of places get to, even myself when I was, working at the central dispatch, the last agency that I was at, there were three of us on at a time. And if we had the chance, I was able to just kind of sit back and just, kind of take it in and decompress a little bit. But otherwise, it was just right to the next call. So for you, for this call or any other calls, are you able to get up and walk away? Or even with that, what are some positive, influence, like coping techniques, anything that you've done? The other reason I ask as well is because and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up on the
No.
podcast, but, um, your Instagram profile, it's there's a lot of different
Yeah.
things that you're doing, as well as, a lot of workouts and stuff that is very inspiring and stuff, and I was just wondering, kind of a segue from that to this, is that kind of, an example of one of those positive influence type, coping techniques?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I am able, like, our minimum staffing is 3 on the floor, and we can get up, like if we have a rough call or if there's a moment where we need to step back, like we can just say, hey, can someone listen to my radio? I need a moment. And we're just like, yeah, take the time that you need. Now if shit's hitting the fan, then that's another story. But
Right,
once it
yeah.
calms down, yes, we can. They do allow us to step away. And I've had to do that where I'm just like, hey, can you just answer the next call? I just kind of need to process this, and then I just move on to the next. Gym is my therapy. Like,
Mhm.
so I started like I I started this health, I call it healthier me. It used to be weight loss, but then it just was a healthier me because I want to be healthier mind, body. um, I was getting hospitalized multiple times for cellulitis, which is a skin infection, and it would put me out for like a week because the way my body was reacting to it, just I had to have IV antibiotics. And so I had decided, because I was like, I can't live like this. So I started taking care of myself, eating better, working out, and I've ended up like losing a significant amount of weight, but I just was feeling better. And I feel like I'm better capable of coping with the stress because I go work out after my shift. So I work until 10:30 at night, hit the gym on my way home. I work out and I just feel so much better. If I have a hard day, I can take it out on the treadmill or whatever, or punching bag.
Right. Yeah.
And it's really nice. But I feel it's so important because a lot of dispatchers, their parents, they have other responsibilities outside of the radio room, and I just feel it's so important for all of us to just take time for ourselves, whether it's 5 minutes or increments or 15 minutes of just you time. Journal, like journaling's huge for me too. Like writing things out. Music is a huge therapy of mine too. Like just even if I have to like sing karaoke style in my car on my way home just to like belt out emotions, like that's fine too. Like I just feel it's so important because we pent things, like we keep a lot of things inside, and cultures are different. A lot of people don't think that showing emotions weakness or having a call affect you is weakness. And, everybody has different coping mechanisms. Dark humor is like a very big one of ours where we just say some,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like people like an outsider would probably think we're dead inside, and they're right. We mostly are, but like we have different ways of coping with things. But I think the most important thing is, and that a lot of things do, is we carry a lot of weight on our shoulders and feel that it's like that we're weak if we look to get help otherwise, whether it be therapy. Like I've done better, I took advantage of like the better help, and that's a huge thing too. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing wrong, and it's not selfish to take care of yourself, to put yourself first for once, because as dispatchers we put everybody else before us, and I'm sure
Yes,
outside
we
of
do.
my people who have kids, you put everybody else before you too. So I think it's so important to just have time for yourself. I feel like it helps not only as a dispatcher but as a person too. I just think that's so important.
That that is perfect. I love that. And I love your outlook on not just the profession and this career, but also, ways to cope with a lot of this stuff because, years ago there were not resources out there really for dispatch. It was just, hey, you take the call and you keep going, or you're not, like you were saying, like people had mentioned to you, you're not the one being shot at or whatever. And it's, you think, well, yeah, we might not be out there in the field, but taking those calls, you can't see anything, which that is changing, right? There is video to 911 in some
Yep.
places that are using that now. But otherwise, other than that, your your imagination is putting everything together, and sometimes it's worse than what is actually going on there. But you don't know that because you're listening to everything. It could be an open line and there's little
Hmm.
things going on that sound like could be something pretty crazy, but then it turns out that it's really nothing. But either way, some of that stuff can be almost worse sometimes. So I love your
Yes.
outlook on all of that, and just good healthy coping techniques. Because like for myself, in the beginning, it was just bearing my calls, and
Hmm.
when I finally started opening up and talking, that's when I was thriving instead of just surviving. And I think that's where we all want to get to a point where we're
Yeah.
actually thriving and not just surviving. So it has been amazing to have you on this episode. I could talk to you for hours. Like this is awesome. This
I
has
know.
been excellent. And it's been an honor to have you on here and talk and just go
Ah,
back and
thank
forth and share
you.
stories and stuff. I've got two questions left for you. And this first one is because we
Yeah.
kind of talked about this as well, how people really just don't know. So you're talking to the public. What is something or some things, rather that you would like them to know about the profession of 911 dispatch? Like what are some things, like if they're calling in, or I don't know, just simply what are some things that you would like the public to know so that they can understand better?
Yes, we're not Hollywood. So like things you see on TV, like the 911 show, CSI, like guess what? We're not going to solve the case in a half an hour. We can't triangulate and get your exact location. So like I know like people think that we can like zoom in and be like, da, 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 okay, we know exactly where you are. And so I always tell people, like, if you're in unfamiliar places, always know your surroundings. Look at mile markers, look at street names. If you're not familiar, like always in the back of your head, start like thinking of where you are. And I know it's like kind of like might be a morbid thing, but it's like if something happened to you and you had to call 911, do you know where to tell them where you're at? Do you know what's going on? Because that is so important. And you know, us, and we have to ask the questions too. Like people think that we ask questions and we're not going to send help out until they answer them all. And it's like, no, guys, we can multitask. Like we've got help on the way. They're rolling, they're coming to you. So like, don't think that we're delaying responses or we're trying to like, you know, piss you off. I promise you we're not. But just like, I feel like those are like the two biggest things. It's like, we're not Hollywood. Like I always want to say that. It's like we're not CSI, and we can't come dust for fingerprints, and we can't do this and we can't do that. Honestly, like also like educate like 911 too versus non-emergency calls, and you know, just kind of be like, okay, just have a better understanding of when to call, or like resources, like help them find
True.
resources, stuff like that too, because they always come to us like
Or
if they're
call
powered.
911 for parade times, you know, something like
Oh
that.
my gosh, I know. It's a fireworks still. This isn't an emergency, but that's my biggest thing. I'm like, it's not an emergency, but you're on 911. Okay. But yeah, like, and also we're people too. Like, I know sometimes like, and I know when it comes to like their most stressful times too, but like, I don't know, like at the end of the day, we're also people too. We've got hearts, we've
Right.
got family, we're understanding, we're not completely heartless. And so if they've ever had a bad experience with a dispatcher, I'm so sorry, but don't umbrella us under as all dispatchers are bad, just like with any other
Right.
category. Like, you know, we're not all the same. We have like the same responsibilities, but we're not all the same, if that makes sense. So those would be a couple of the things I could probably talk for hours about.
just that one question.
I've been that one question. I'd be like, oh, this was 15 minutes and we're now an hour in. Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But those are just like a couple of like bullet points, I guess you could say.
Those are, yeah, and those are good ones. Those are excellent ones right there. Now, the final question as we go into the wrap up of this is you've started your 10th year, right, in dispatch. With all of the knowledge that you have now, your experience, the things you've gone through, the calls you've taken, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself in the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Probably you should have started this sooner. Why didn't you apply earlier is what I would have told myself. I would just say be open. Just be a sponge and be open to everything and all possibilities. There are many different and learn from every single person you come across. Every single person in that radio room with you will have something that you'll carry with you for the rest of the life. Be open to it. Don't be so quick to buy into the crap, because with centers, they're very easy to try to get you into this group or get you on this side. And it's just just be open for everyone and everything. Don't buy into the drama. Don't buy into the inner center crap. Just worry about you. Just worry about the caller. Just worry about building the skills that you need to be good at your job, and you'll go far. I feel like it's very easy to go in to kind of get folded into the toxicity culture a little bit with centers. I know a lot of centers get into that, but you just kind of have to always step back too and just kind of look at the bigger picture of things. And if you always do that, it'll be so much more peaceful. And also, if you ever read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I highly recommend reading that, because that honestly, that book changed my life. With dealing with conflict in the center and stuff, it's what am I going to waste my energy on versus what I'm not going to waste my energy on changes everything. And it changes your peace too. It just brings so much more inner peace. So definitely
Excellent.
yes, there, the end.
Perfect. Well, Ashley, thank you again for being on this episode, and thank you for what you do in this profession and for those out in your community and everything. It has been an honor to have you on, and this has been so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love being here.
So I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And
Okay.
for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can become a supporter of the podcast by going to Patreon, Facebook, or Circle is a community that I'm working on building. And to do all of that easily and to find my social media and all of that, just simply go to this link. It is called links.co/WTT podcast. And that's links with 2 I's .co/WTT podcast. That will take you to a spot that has everything on there, my email, all of my social media, where to follow, the latest episode of the podcast, as well as a button immediately underneath where you can schedule an episode as well. So if you are new to dispatch, if you're just starting out, or you're a seasoned dispatcher, or you're a retired 911 dispatcher, please send me an email and or go to there and schedule an episode. I would love to share your story on the podcast. This has been such a great experience to be able to do this, and your trust in me to share your stories. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you more than you know. This podcast is heard in over 60 countries and has surpassed over 2.2 million downloads. So thank you, all of you. This wouldn't be what it is without all of you. So I appreciate you more than you know. You can also find where to purchase Imagine Listening, the book, the audiobook. The audiobook has been #1 these past couple of weeks, and that has been amazing. Thank you all for that as well. And you can also check out any dispatch or podcasting merch there. And that's, again, links with 2 I's .co/WTT podcast. This broadcast has been sponsored by In Digital, a leader next gen core services, and a big shout out, as always, to subscribers. You can see this on YouTube, as well as X, Facebook, and LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.